This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. Right now, our lives are on our phones. And with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device service required. Visit AT&T.com/activearmor for details.
Yeah, we're still without internet. This is starting to frustrate me.
Good thing we're on the radio.
I know. I mean, you know what? I'll count my blessings. You're right. It's Nick Hanley, Go Big Ready with you. Hour 3 of the Nick Hanley Show. From what I heard, Bounce Channel 94 said the phone lines are all wacky too right now. So we hope to talk to Sean Leahy of Pro Hockey Talk at NBC Sports, but I don't know. We'll find out. If we do, your phone calls and our guests appear on the Limitless Mayo Medical Hotline, 402-573-0590. And as you heard, the DJ's Dugout inbox open for you on Twitter at NickESPN590. Do want to get into some of the things that Bill Moose had to talk about discuss last night on Sports Nightly, which you heard right here on AM 590. And I also want to get into another Husker football preseason topic. And we can debate this, or we can just throw out a handful of teams or games that we think would fall into this category. But what would you consider to be the absolute toughest game for Nebraska in 2021? Is it a road trip to Norman, Oklahoma? Is it the home game against Ohio State? Or could somebody possibly believe that the Michigan team that is coming to Lincoln might be difficult? We'll get into that a little bit later on. So I want to get back to this DeChambeau-Koepka feud. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday with Matt Rudy of Golf Digest. Look, this is one of the great things that golf needs, is having this, what is seemingly genuine. It doesn't seem like this is a manufactured rivalry. You just get the feeling. I think Matt Rudy said it best when he described Bryson DeChambeau and his way of going about things, and then taking his sweet ass time for every shot. And he did that before he even bulked up. I mean, this was a guy that is very calculated. I mean, if you want to see what it takes, Bryson DeChambeau between every shot, it's like the air density and all this. There's a lot of examples of it. Just go to YouTube and you can find it. And that's something that, Brooks Koepka is not a very, I guess, I wouldn't say he's not an analytic type of guy. He doesn't overanalyze it. But the way that Matt Rudy kind of labeled him is sort of a jock, as a guy that's a little bit more on the instincts, the feel of it, and let's get it and let's go. And anybody who might sort of fall into that category of a science nerd, if you will, hey, the jocks and the nerds, they don't get along, right?
No.
There's a rival there. Now, the thing that always drew my ire with DeChambeau was him playing a video game on Twitch and just starts talking a bunch of crap about Brooks Koepka and the ESPN body issue, and saying how he didn't have abs, and then goes on to say that DeChambeau himself has abs, but Koepka doesn't. It's like, all right. And so Koepka had like the best comeback in the world, and that was, yep, you're right, I'm too shy of a six-pack, and he had the 4 major trophies, which was awesome. I mean, it was like,
oh, that's perfect.
Oh, it was fantastic. And there's been some barbs back and forth. There was the fire ant incident this last summer where DeChambeau was trying to get relief from a really bad spot.
Oh, yeah.
And he saw the red ant.
To protect the animals or whatever.
Well, he was afraid that there was there were fire ants nearby, and that they sort of created some type of dangerous environment and situation for himself. It's like
when some golfers will go like knock the head of an
alligator.
Yeah.
Yeah. But DeChambeau's like, no. I mean, it had nothing to do with the fact that he was trying to hit out of a jungle. It was the fact that there was an ant that he tried to, and thank goodness the rules director did not award him that. But then it was either later that day or the following day. Koepka was kind of hit off the fairway. He was sort of in a similar spot, and he said, I think I saw an ant. Like you could hear him say that to his caddy, and then he said, I'm joking. So, like, again, a dig at DeChambeau. This whole video that went viral that apparently took place this last Friday at Kiawah Island at the PGA Championship, where I think Koepka was either tied for the lead or was right up there. And I think he may be 2 or 3 strokes ahead of DeChambeau. He's doing a post-round interview with the Golf Channel, and before this reporter starts his interview, Koepka looks like he is either about to fall asleep or something caught his attention and he is like staring daggers at it. Like he looks, at first I'm like, oh gosh, he looks like he wants nothing to do with this interview.
Yeah, he looks like he did not want to be there.
Right. It just looked like, oh gosh, I got to do this interview. And so, but then you find out what he's actually doing. He is looking off to his right of where either DeChambeau is doing another interview with somebody else or DeChambeau is like approaching. And just the absolute hatred that you see from that face before they start the interview. And then he kind of turns it on and, starts answering a question as best as he can. And as he's talking about the greens being tough with the wind, DeChambeau walks by and says something. Now, the rumor is, as Koepka's talking about the greens being very difficult, he said something like, I don't know what other people are telling you. To this reporter, I don't know what other people are telling you, but yeah, it's really tough to make putts. The rumor is DeChambeau walked by as Koepka was doing the interview and said, well, then find a better line. And you visibly see Koepka see DeChambeau walk by, hear him say something, and just kind of gets really pissed, kind of rolls his eyes, tries to keep talking, and then all of a sudden says, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. And the reporter's laughing.
Yeah.
And he goes, I lost my train of thought. He goes, yeah. He goes, with that bull, you know what? Or hearing that bull, you know what? And then the reporter's just laughing. He goes, hey, we're going to have some fun with this in the TV truck. And Koepka's like, I could care less if you do. If you want to, fine. Basically, if you want to post this, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, I loved it. He was like, I don't care. Do it. Let him know what I said.
And that's kind of how Koepka is. He's not a guy that is I don't see him as a guy that is so concerned about the way he comes across. I think and another thing Matt Rudy brought up yesterday that I thought was very spot on Koepka is he understands if you don't have this big group of friends in the PGA, there's a lot of, cliques or, inner circles within the PGA, and a lot of those younger golfers, and they pal around and they're all pretty close. Koepka kind of keeps to his own. I mean, you can tell there's a lot of respect, and I don't think he goes out of his way to be a jerk to people. But there is a little bit of that, as Matt Rudy said, intimidation, knowing that if you're not super close to all these guys, it's probably to your advantage, because if you're trying to chase them down on a Sunday or you're trying to hold a lead on a Sunday, there is a little bit of that intimidation because they don't feel like, oh, it's Brooksy, man, that's my guy. No, it's like, I don't know. I don't really know how he is. I don't have a relationship with him. And so he plays a little bit of that intimidation role. DeChambeau, when I think of the things that just kind of rub me the wrong way, and if you're listening to this show for the first time, this might be news, and if you listened to me a few times, I'm not a DeChambeau fan. Goes back to, his pace of play.
Continents move faster than him.
Oh, God, yeah. That whole thing bothered me. And then the whole, taking a dig at Koepka, is almost like he was jealous that Koepka got to be in a body issue, and he's, knocking him, and it's like, okay, whatever, that was unnecessary, but, say what you want to. Then last year, when golf resumed, and he's at the Rocket Mortgage, the event that he won, there was a cameraman who was essentially doing his job and was filming what he's being told to film from the TV truck and from his director, and DeChambeau's having a bad hole. And so, as you always see this, as soon as a guy ends up putting the ball in, you always get sort of that reaction, whether it's a, quick little wave to the crowd or, frustration or a fist pump because it was a great hole. And the camera guy had Bryson's reaction. Instead of going to the next hole, Bryson confronts the cameraman and basically undresses the guy. Like, just basically criticizes him to the point that it was at a volume that everybody else could hear it, for essentially doing his job, because that guy had a camera that was pointed at Bryson DeChambeau. But that cameraman was supposed to be there because he's part of the TV coverage, the live TV coverage, and he happened to catch Bryson in a blow-up hole in a bad moment. And so he was mad that people saw him sulk, that the television audience saw him sulk, and he blamed this guy. That guy is doing his job.
Right? It's the producer who chooses to put it on the TV.
Right. And
who likes producers anyways? Psh.
But it wasn't like, yeah, I know, right? But it wasn't like he was doing anything that doesn't happen to every golfer. And then so he was asked about it afterwards, and somehow in a weird explanation, he tried to compare that situation to like what happens to Tiger Woods. And I'm like, well, no. We are not comparing who you are and your overall appeal or popularity to Tiger freaking Woods. And so there was this ego that came out. There's this insecurity that comes out. I respect the guy's game, and I respect the thing that he's trying to do. He's trying to win in a different way. I have nothing but respect for that. It's the kind of person that he comes across to be. And so with Koepka kind of constantly sort of like digging at him and kind of being there to sort of check him, I love that. And today there was another little wrinkle. So once it was announced that DeChambeau and Rodgers are playing Peyton Manning, or not Peyton Manning, but Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. By the way, Tom Brady's talking a lot of trash, which is really funny. All of a sudden, Brady's gotten a little mouthy in the last couple of years. I do too. From Super Bowl boat party drunk Tom Brady to mouthy Tom Brady, like,
oh, no, my favorite videos are when him and Gronk are like, guess who's back, or whatever, those videos.
Yes.
Those are my favorite.
This is stuff Tom would not do a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Tom is having fun. But Brooks Koepka sends out a tweet and just says, sorry, bro, and tags Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
Which was just hilarious. And so DeChambeau responds and says, it's great living rent-free in your head to Koepka. Which, again, I think is a fair comeback.
Yeah.
And then Koepka responds with a video of DeChambeau like on, looks like a Pro-Am or like a Wednesday practice round, where DeChambeau is getting ready to hit the ball off the tee, and as he does, somebody mistakenly calls him Brooksy. And they go, all right, Brooksy. And DeChambeau looks at like in that area and says, whoever called me Brooksy needs to get out of here. And so that was Koepka's like response, like, clearly I live in your head too. So, around and around it goes. Look, golf, I already think is sort of changed its image a little bit, where you're seeing more guys on tour that don't sort of represent like that stuffy country club culture that I think golf was always kind of associated to. And it still kind of is. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau are, rags to riches story. No, I mean, DeChambeau is making a truckload of money, and so is Koepka. Both guys seemingly come from privilege. But when you have two guys that legitimately do not like each other and are not shying away from it, you don't see those types of rivalries in that sport. You just don't. I mean, even like Phil and Tiger, they weren't like audibly like talking trash to each other. They just sort of like cold shouldered each other. There wasn't a lot of stuff out there that you were picking up like on social media of like Phil barking over at Tiger and then Tiger barking back. Like it was just more of like kind of they're pretty cold towards one another. You have like social media interaction and audible like leaked video of these two guys hating each other. And you know what? I'm here for it all day.
Oh, I mean, I am too. It's like you're out golfing with your group of buddies, but there's that one buddy that you just can't stand when you go against them competitively, and we all get to just watch it every day.
Yeah. Either he beats you or you cannot wait to get on the course because it's your day. You're going to beat him. I mean, that's DeChambeau, I think, has always kind of rubbed people the wrong way, just his peers at the PGA, because of his pace of play. I think that's a real thing. But like some of the things that he says, I don't think people are like on board with it. But then I'm also curious if like everybody's like Team Koepka. Like if you ask like Dustin Johnson or Justin Thomas or Jordan Spieth or Ricky Fowler or Louis Oosthuizen, and like ask, hey, are you guys, like, if you had to choose between DeChambeau and Koepka, like, which team are you on? Like, I know I'm on Team Koepka because I just can't stand DeChambeau. But, like, are a lot of the guys on the tour, are they in that same mindset too? Because I know there's some guys that aren't huge Koepka fans either. I'd be curious to know.
I think it'd be. I think it's 60-40 Koepka. Who likes?
I think so.
Who
too.
likes Bryson? Like, honestly,
I don't know. I always feel like he's the guy that sort of, if you remember in like high school, you always had like your group of friends, you're getting ready to go out, and all of a sudden the one guy that shows up that is kind of in the group of friends, but you're always like, hey, don't tell so-and-so where we're going tonight. All right, just tell them we're doing this. Like, I feel like Bryson's the guy who's like, hey, guys, where are we going? Hey, I can drive. If anybody needs a ride, I can drive.
He's the dude that doesn't get an invite but still shows up.
Yes, exactly. That's who he reminds me of. I could be way off. He could be like the coolest cat in the world, and you got to be on like the elite list to hang out with him. But he reminds me of the guy like trying to hang out with the PGA players. Like, guys, wherever we're going, I can drive. So if anybody wants to ride with me, no, man, we're actually going to call tonight. And then all of a sudden, like, he just winds up at a bar with somebody else, and all of a sudden sees like 6 or 7 PGA guys that he just talked to.
All the dudes walking in.
Yeah, they're all hanging out. Hey, you know what? We just decided to. Oh yeah, we tried to text you, man. Sorry, like. Yeah, that's how I see it. All right, we are going to attempt to talk to Sean Leahy, get his thoughts on what has actually been a very fun Stanley Cup playoff so far. Our phones are a little iffy right now, so hopefully we'll be talking to Sean Leahy. And we're also going to talk some Husker football scheduling. Want to get thoughts on the most challenging games to maybe the least challenging games for the 2021 Nebraska football schedule. All coming up.
Just one secret word could win the AM 590 Back to Happy Beaches giveaway. Listen for the secret words at 2 and 5 on the Nick Handley Show. Then enter on the AM 590 Omaha app.
You know, it's not the same to watch the Stanley Cup playoffs when your team is not involved, but when it's been a good one to this point, it's easy to start just kind of digging in. And so far, Stanley Cup playoffs have been very fun to this point as we go to the Limitless Male Medical Hotline and talk with Sean Leahy of Pro Hockey Talk at NBC Sports. Sean, we got some teams facing elimination tonight. We want to get to that here in a moment, but just so far, what has been your overall take of the play that we've seen to this point?
Well, we've had plenty of excitement. There's been, I think, about a dozen or so overtime games, a couple multi-overtime games which are always fun. We had a series end and a triple overtime, 2 sweeps. So we still got a couple of 5 series left and potential for a weekend full of game 7 to set us up for round 2. So the series have been fun. The games have been pretty exciting. Some tight, close hockey as you'd expect on playoff times. The first round is always exciting because there's so much stuff going on at one time, and this year is no different.
Well, we know the Penguins tonight, they're one of those teams that face elimination against the Isles. And if you're kind of looking at where the Penguins have kind of gone wrong here in these last couple of games, what has really kind of stood out? Is it more of what you've seen from the Islanders, or is it more of what Pittsburgh is just kind of failing to do all of a sudden?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the Islanders are under Barry Trotz. They may not have had the most impressive regular season, but they're a team that's built for the playoffs. They're built for tight hockey. They have 2 goaltenders who they can rely on at any time with Varlamov and Sorokin. While they're not going to outscore you 10-9 every game, they have been getting timely scoring from guys, even while Matthew Barzal has been kind of struggling to get on the score sheet. I mean, Jordan Eberle, Josh Bailey, kind of the 2 old veterans there, chipping in some big goals this series. And the defensive core has been great at shutting down Crosby and Malkin and Jake Gensel and just the Penguins' big guns. And the Penguins haven't been getting chances. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
You look at the possession, you look at the shots, especially last game. They've controlled everything, but they haven't been able to cash in. You look at a heat map of the last couple of games, and it's all beat red right in front of the Islanders' net. So they're getting to the crease and getting to those dirty areas in front. They're just not able to capitalize, and if they can't do that tonight, then their season's going to be over yet again, and pretty early in the playoffs.
And if that does happen, I mean, when you kind of look at the expectations for this Penguins team, and if they have an early round exit of the Stanley Cup playoffs, how do you think that that's going to be kind of received in the hockey world, just based on maybe what we thought they could be at some point?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have the hottest start to the season, but they really turned it on in the second half, and the reason why they won the division and were really one of the better teams in the NHL for the last 6 to 8 weeks or so of the regular season. If they end up falling short tonight or even Friday night in Game 7, it's going to be an interesting offseason because Crosby is going to be turning 34 this summer. Malkin's 34, going on 35. Chris Letang is 34, and you have two new guys in charge of the team. Ron Hextall as GM, Brian Burke as president of hockey operations, guys who've been around this league who really, they might know some of these players through past relationships. They don't have any loyalty to them. It's not like they've been in the job 5-6 years and been through the wars with these guys. So if they see the need to make drastic changes, especially for a team aging, but has some young players coming through to supplant that veteran core to keep the team a contender, they're going to see fit to do that this summer and to improve upon the roster this year for next season. I mean.
Another elimination game tonight. The Lightning trying to close out the Panthers yet again. And, I mean, really, we got to go back to the last game. I mean, how impressive was rookie goalie Spencer Knight and just what he was able to do and to keep this thing alive right now for the Panthers?
He's been real good. He only got, he did get a couple of regular season appearances, and he looked sharp there, coming right out of college. And now, after the other night, he could be he's the guy going forward. Basically, at this point, he's their third goalie that they've used in this series that they started the game. They're basically at, all right, well, who's ever playing well, you have the job. So if you play well tonight, he's going to keep it going. And whatever happens with the Panthers, whether it's this round or they advance, I'm very curious to see what happens in the summer with Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, because Bobrovsky is still signed for another five or so years, carrying a $10 million cap hit, where this kid Knight is 20 years old. He's clearly the goalie of the future. He's about 10 or 11 years younger than Bobrovsky. It's an expensive backup to have on your bench every night with Spencer Knight kind of, taking most of the starts. But you look at the rest of the team, and this Panthers team has a lot of nice young pieces that Bill Zito and Joel Quenneville have put together and really made this team look like that this is not just a one-year thing where next year when we go back to normal divisions, they be a team that's ready to challenge for the playoffs and not an old Panthers team where they have one good year and they fall right off.
Well, and, being a Chicago fan and Coach Q fan as well, how he can do and build around a young, talented goalie and have success with that. The thing that I kind of took away from Knight as well, that team, that Lightning team, we've talked about it a lot, Sean. There's so many different things that you have to account for with the way that they attack you. And I just felt like, I don't want to say that this maybe changes the series, because I still got to say Tampa is probably the betting favorite, but under the circumstances and trying to keep the season alive, going up against that type of firepower, I can't think of a more impressive performance than what we've seen here in the last couple nights.
Yeah, it's almost like the old saying, he's too young and dumb to really know any better.
Right.
Sometimes you don't have any of that past experience to fall back on. You just go into the game and play your game, no matter who you're facing, whether it's another team or the defending champions with Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and guys like that on the other side. And I think what helps this Lightning, not just the goaltenders, but also the skaters out in front, is the fact that they've played this team they played Lightning 8 times during the regular season. They know them very well. We knew this was going to potentially be a first-round matchup. And, that first game was back and forth. Second game, the Lightning took over. Third game, the Panthers would go back and forth and win in overtime. And obviously, Game 4 was forgettable for Florida. But then they come back strong, and they put up that performance in Game 5 behind Knight. And now tonight, another chance to extend the series one more game. And, I think they're not scared of the Lightning, right? They've seen them enough times. They know them. They know who they are. They're not going to be surprised by anything that John Cooper's going to put out there. And I think the fact that Joel Quenneville is the head coach, there's no nerves there. He's been in so many tight spots, big games. He knows how to coach through these games. He knows how to get through his players to get the most out of them in challenging situations like this. How many times did the Blackhawks face elimination in the playoffs during his years during their cup runs? He knows these games for these players to get the most out of them and bring them up to the challenge. So I think we're going to see the dogfight tonight from the Panthers. Whether they win or lose, I think it's going to be a tight one.
I know you have been on the Vegas train for a while as far as one of the teams to watch here in the playoffs and possibly win a Stanley Cup. They do drop their recent game to keep this series going to the Wild, but do you feel like that thing wraps up tonight for Vegas?
Not 100%. Just if you look at it, it's funny. The Wild have had Vegas' number since they entered the league. The Wild have had so much success against them. It's pardon the pun. It's wild, but but this is when the Wild are a much different team now than when Vegas entered the league. They're much better, much more skilled, getting much better goaltending. So this is obviously going to pose a challenge for them. But you get guys like Kirill Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, getting good goaltending from Cam Talbot. They're able to match what Vegas can throw at them. And Vegas, kind of like with the Penguins against the Islanders, they're dominating possession. They're getting into those dirty areas where the Wild have been relying on power plays and, getting those lucky bounces and, good deflections and just, good timed chances and capitalizing on their opportunities, however few they've been throughout this series. But I think in the end, you kind of look at what Vegas can do and the way Marc-Andre Fleury's played this season. He doesn't string losses together very often this year, and I think he's going to have a really big bounce back game tonight because they know what can happen in a Game 7 where everything's on the line and anything can happen with those things.
Going back to last night, too, I want to ask you about just with the Maple Leafs and starting Jack Campbell. Were you surprised that he got the start knowing that, they were maybe even leaning towards going with the other guy and obviously not terrible decision to go with Jack Campbell in that one?
No. I mean, Freddie Anderson, I think they've, between the injuries that Freddie Anderson had in the regular season and just his play when he was healthy, was very up and down. And Jack Campbell stepped in, took that number one role and ran with it, and was a huge reason why the Maple Leafs had such success during the regular season. And I think there's a little bit of confidence lost in Anderson. You don't know what to expect. You did have an AHL start, I think two within in the last couple of weeks as he was coming back from his injury, but it's net, and he's been really playing really well. And the Maple Leafs have done a really, really good job at suppressing the shot opportunities for the Canadians, keeping their chances not as dangerous as say that the Maple Leafs are getting as they're getting closer to Carey Price, and obviously defensively led by Morgan Riley and Jake Muzzin, just kind of shutting down the Canadians. They don't have as much firepower as the Maple Leafs, even as they don't have John Tavares. I think bringing in Cole Caulfield was a smart idea. They should have started the series that way. He's had some opportunities, but just hasn't been able to cash in. And I think it's kind of been the overwhelming theme of this series is, Montreal, they've had the fewer of the chances and just haven't been able to capitalize on them. And you have a team like Toronto who can throw over three powerful lines at you. Yeah. And then on the fourth one, you got old guys like Spezza and Thornton who are still able to chip in, and it's kind of overwhelming for them right now.
Talking with Sean Leahy, NBC Sports Pro Hockey Talk here on AM 590. The crazy series between Carolina and Nashville, Jordan Staal last night, the game winner. I mean, when you kind of look at this series, which way do you think it ultimately goes with that 2 overtime winner to put Carolina in front 3-2? Do you still think Nashville has something to say about this?
And Nashville has definitely surprised me with the way, different guys have been stepping up and scoring big goals. Luke Kunin had the big game the other day. Matt Duchene's awoken from his season-long coma and chipped in this series as well. But I think for the Predators, they're going to have to rely heavily on really kind of the reason why they got here, and that's UC Saros and goal. They need him to steal the next 2 games at least, because we saw what he did early in the series. He's been phenomenal, and if he's not on his game, with the way the Hurricanes play as far as controlling possession, getting good looks on net, and being strong defensively with their depth there on the blue line, I think it could be lights out for the Predators tonight.
As far as the teams that are still alive right now, and maybe the answer I already know could be Vegas, because I know you've talked about Vegas quite a bit. But as far as the teams that maybe have still got a game to wrap things up, but you still feel are in good shape and maybe are going to get a little bit of a boost by kind of being challenged in their first series. Is there a team that you think can kind of come out of maybe being pushed, 5 or 6 games that could actually benefit from that?
Yeah, I think Vegas too. I think I don't know. I guess it depends on the type of team. Sometimes you could cruise through a round and you get all that rest, and sometimes that's not a good thing. Being off for so long, like you look at the Bruins and the Avs and the Oilers and the Jets. I mean, they could have 5, 6, 7 days off depending on when the next round starts. Where you look at a team like Vegas, who has been in these playoff wars since they entered the league. I think getting these battles out early, especially against a Wild team, a team that's really been tough against them for the last 4 years, I think that could really help them going forward. Because then, when you get into those tight spots, maybe in the next round, especially if they do advance and we get that dreamy matchup against the Avalanche, and that's not going to be an easy ride. That can certainly, this could certainly serve as a very good test for them going forward if they do end up wrapping up either tonight or Friday.
Sean Leahy again, NBC Sports Pro Hockey Talk. Sean, appreciate it. We'll talk to you very soon, man.
You got it, bud. Take care.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little Nebraska football, the schedule, the most difficult to the challenging games to maybe the least challenging games based on what we think we know about these opponents. We'll get to that right after the break.
Nick Hanley Show podcasts are now available on the new AM 590 app, powered by Woodhouse Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. Download now from the App Store or Google Play.
All right, go Big Ready. If there is the game that you are the least confident in for Nebraska, the game that you just, no matter how you slice it up, you just cannot see a scenario that Nebraska wins, who would that be?
It's got to be Ohio State, for me at least.
I'm with you.
Because, Oklahoma, they're still Oklahoma. You don't know. Anything could happen with that. It's a rivalry game. There's going to be a lot of Nebraskans there. But, Ohio State, they came into our house, and they wrecked us.
That was when I fell in love with Justin Fields. Not like the fact that he beat Nebraska. I wasn't, excited about that. But that's where I was like, damn. That kid can play.
I showed up to campus at 7 p.m. Friday, and I don't think I left until 11 p.m. Saturday. That was a long day.
Did you bring deodorant?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
Well, it was in the bottoms, so
yeah,
it wasn't on me.
Yeah, I'm just glad you thought ahead because
I
don't want you to be that smelly guy.
Oh yeah,
the guy I was talking about. I don't want you to be that guy.
That was actually the first time I sat next to an opposing team fan at Memorial Stadium.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was third quarter, and it was 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and the dude looks at me, he's just like, "I'm sorry, man."
Yeah, I'm with you. The Oklahoma game. Now, I'm not trying to say I give Nebraska a legitimate shot at winning that game, but I'm also going off of history, and I got to admit, I think Lincoln Riley is a tremendous offensive mind. I think he's a good coach. I do. I'm still not sold that OU has the same level of defense that Ohio State would bring in.
That's the Big 12D. No, I'm not afraid of it.
And I get it. Oklahoma's defense, it got a little bit better there towards the end of the year, but I honestly think that the tougher defense in the Big 12 is Iowa State, not Oklahoma. And so I think if you are extreme, and they are so good on offense. I don't know what Nebraska's defense can be able to do, but I could see Nebraska possibly getting some points on Oklahoma if things progress offensively. It's a big if.
I see Nebraska getting points before it gets out of hand against Oklahoma.
Sure, yeah. I think that's a reasonable scenario. I do. Ohio State, to me, first of all, their front seven is always nasty. They've got first-round type corners almost every year. And, okay, so they don't have Justin Fields anymore. Guess what? They're going to have another good quarterback, and that quarterback is going to be a dual-threat guy. They've got plenty of skilled players around them and a good offensive line. I just do not see an area that I think, yep, Nebraska is going to be able to attack this. And this is where Nebraska is going to have success. Now, that's, again, we're in May. I get that. But I'm with you. I think I would give the slight nod there to Ohio State, despite it being in Lincoln. Now, if we look at the most challenging divisional opponent, this might tick people off. I still think it's Iowa. Based on what they have coming back now, I think I expect it to be close because it always has been close since Scott Frost was here. I don't know if I'm sold on Wisconsin, though. That's the reason I give a slighter nod to Iowa than I do Wisconsin. when it comes to the divisional opponents. I don't know. Am I way off on that one?
I have a major bias because I do not like that state.
Sure,
to the
and
east.
I totally get that. I'm trying to be as objective as I can on this one. I'm not 100% all in on Wisconsin.
I'm more in on Wisconsin than I am Iowa.
Are you?
Yeah, I think so.
I
'Cause
like-
Iowa doesn't have any like a major wideout returning next year, right? Or do they?
You're right. They're looking to sort of, fill those roles there too. I don't think Spencer Petras is this like amazing quarterback, but you saw some improvement. It was such an inconclusive result from Wisconsin last year that kind of like Penn State, I think everybody just assumes they're going to bounce back and be fine. And I don't know. Like the way Penn State is recruited, I can buy into that much more than I could with Wisconsin. But Wisconsin also has an identity that they play into as well. So I don't know. I want to get to more. Let's discuss this further. I'll take a quick break here. All right, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking more Creighton baseball. Head coach Ed Service set to join me right around 5:15 as the Jays get ready for Big East tournament play tomorrow out in Mason, Ohio. We'll also get into what Bill Moose had to say on Sports Nightly yesterday. Some of the more normal protocols coming your way if you're a season ticket holder and some of that stuff. Also want to continue the conversation about the most challenging games to maybe the least challenging games in the 2021 season. All coming your way as we get into the 5 o'clock hour here on the Nick Hanley Show.